Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Soulful Abundance Festival. I'm your host, Elise Preston, founder of Be More Connected, and today I am so excited to be here with Steph Lit. Welcome, Steph.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay, we are so excited to have you. And Steph is a women's mentor and productivity coach whose mission is to support ambitious women to achieve their goals while avoiding burnout. Her work is an elegant marriage of ancient wisdom and modern business, and she offers weekly yoga classes, Floductivity workshops, and coaching. Her work draws upon traditional coaching and behavior change theory, women's reproductive health and cycle regulation, functional nutrition, yoga, mindfulness, pelvic floor care, and pleasure. She knows that your female body's natural rhythm isn't a productivity problem, it's a productivity asset. And she's committed to teaching you how to leverage your energy ebbs and flows so that you can get way more done with way less effort. And that's always a career booster. And so, as I'm reading your bio, I'm just getting really excited about all of the different ways that we can dive in more deeply around this. But would love if we could start off by getting to know you a bit more deeply and understanding your own journey of healing and how you found your way to the work that you're doing in the world today.
Yeah, great question. And thanks so much for reading that bio so elegantly. Um, I have my background in fitness, and I actually began my work as a fitness professional, as a personal trainer and an indoor cycling instructor. So I worked in like big box gyms. I did the like 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. grind. And it was very much a culture of like, it's never enough, and it has to hurt to work. And needless to say, I burnt out. My body got very tired, and a lot of my systems began to shut down, namely my adrenals, my stress response, and just my endocrine system as a whole, my hormone, um, system. And so I was also on hormonal birth control for 14 years. And I was very much in the mindset of turn this thing off, and the thing being my cycle, my flow, turn this thing off because I need to stay on this grind, and I need to have my body meet these demands every day. And I, as a person, need to have the energy and the kind of stick-to-itiveness to show up and go 110% every day. And, I don't know very many female-bodied folks who like have energy every day and want to be social every day, or wear tight pants every day. Like, I don't really know anyone who wants to. I know many folks who think they have to, but it's not a deep embodied desire to do it. And so eventually, I got an IUD, so I wasn't menstruating, and it was just, and then other parts of my body started to shut down. And really, what was the apex of the situation for me was developing a cyst in my wrist that kept me from doing any weight-bearing exercise. With being a fitness professional, you can imagine that's pretty challenging. And so that was kind of my light bulb moment of what I'm doing isn't working. And I'm forcing myself to keep up with demands that weren't even really specifically designed for me. Right. And so I began to think there must be another way. And there must be a way for me to continue teaching and empowering folks to discover and remember their strength,
Mm.
with a element of softness to that.
Yes.
And so I began to really look at the female hormonal fluctuations, and I transitioned off of birth control, and I started working with mostly food and exercise of like, how can I align what the input and the output of my body
Yeah.
with this cycle that's happening naturally,
Mm.
right? So that is pretty much how I found my way to my work now, which is, essentially aligning your life with your cycle
Yeah.
and working with your body instead of against it.
Working with your body instead of against it. And I think this is so huge because there's so much conditioning that we receive in our lives that would have us not even consider that as an option, right? That as you described it in your own personal experience, like the ways that we force ourselves and we force our body to keep up with these certain demands or expectations that weren't designed for us and that aren't actually serving us. And so, how incredible and how important it is that you were able to explore, what other ways are there? There must be another way to be able to operate with more alignment, with more softness, with more connection to yourself. And so, would love to be able to dive into this concept of floductivity even more deeply and share about the ways in which women can really tangibly approach this in their own lives.
Mm-hmm. And just kind of building on what you were just saying, it's like on one hand, these corporate systems and the male dominated workplaces that so many women are navigating, they weren't built for us.
Right.
Not emotionally, physically, physiologically. They're built for the idealized career worker.
Mm.
And he is a man,
Sure.
at least hormonally, male body. So constantly navigating spaces that aren't meant for you takes a toll on your energy and your outlook, not to mention your ability to perform.
Mm.
So, on the other hand, we absorb the message that if our energy is dipping or our frustration is rising, which no wonder it is, that we're the problem,
Yes.
right? So, one, we have an extra energy burn on us from navigating these patriarchal workplaces and our culture. And then two, we're in a sense gaslit into blaming ourselves for it.
Yeah.
And so a woman's monthly cycle is set up in a very specific way.
Mm-hmm.
So, based on the natural flow of our hormones, we think, we feel, and we act differently each week.
Yeah.
The chemicals in our brain are shifting too, and these fluctuations will change the types of tasks that we naturally want to focus on.
Mm.
So, although we do change week to week, the patterns are somewhat predictable from cycle phase to phase. So, it's not like you can't have any structure, that this is just willy-nilly.
Right.
There's a certain structure, and this is where I bring in kind of the flow of the masculine and feminine.
Ooh, yeah.
Is that the masculine is saying, you show up, you do the same thing every day, 9 to 5, whatever hours you work, you have the same energy, the same output, the same desire to be social, the same ability to really work on these big projects, whatever. So there's still the masculine form that's saying, okay, you have these 4 distinct phases, and each of these phases will make your mind more open to reflection, to strategy, to communication, and to tackling projects.
Got
And
it.
this is predictable month to month. I mean, give or take, if you have a regular cycle, regular I consider to be the same for you, not
Mhm.
in comparison to anybody else.
Sure.
But you'll be able to know what days you're going to be able to maximize in each of these areas. And so the trick is to really become in tune with these natural shifts, and you can make slight tweaks to your schedule and really reap the benefits of increased productivity.
Yes.
Stress will melt away. You'll no longer feel guilty about setting more boundaries because you're not going to schedule board meetings or interviews or big networking events on the weeks that you are more likely to be turned inward, more reflective.
Yes.
Right? So there's not going to be this overwhelm in our work that happens when we're trying to fight against our natural tendencies. Right?
Yes.
When we internalize this resistance and then we sit here wondering why we can't focus on the to-do list when all we want to do is have an office half hour.
Right.
So that's really FLOWductivity, is knowing, I mean, basically in short, when you're menstruating, and I like to think of the seasons, I also work a lot with the lunar cycles, which are the same. So
Yeah.
when you're menstrual, that would be, you know, in alignment with the new moon or your winter. So you think hibernation, kind of have to turn in, reflect on the last month, see where there's any places for improvement or growth or shift or change. Then you move into your follicular phase, which is the waxing moon, and you have that first half. And this is your spring. And so you're kind of planting seeds. So any of those like aha moments that you might have gotten during reflection of your menstrual phase, you're now kind of beginning to plant those seeds and scheme a little bit and see, like, what do I want to be doing over this next month, right? Like, what projects do I kind of want to get started? What interviews do I want to do? What networking events do I want to do? And you kind of start planning it. Then you move into your ovulation, which is your highest energy, where you think this is when your body is designed to reproduce. This is your summer. This is the full moon. This is communicating. You're like flirty and fun, right? You want to be connecting with people. You want to be doing collaboration, really reaching out to people, chatting. Like, this is when you're really outward. Then you move into luteal phase, which is the waning moon. This is your fall. And this is where you really have the energy to tackle projects. Like the right and left spheres of your brain, hemispheres of your brain are starting to align, which happens completely when you're menstruating, which is why the reflection happens. But they're starting to balance here in the luteal phase. And so you are like spending big chunks of time on projects. This is where you're kind of making ends meet, right? This is the kind of end of the cycle.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of it in short. You know, there's ways to kind of pinpoint certain areas, just depending on what your work is.
Sure.
Whether it's fitness, whether you're in the corporate world, whether you're just getting started as a solo entrepreneur, or you have a business that you might just feel like you're hitting a dead end. There's specific ways to plug this in for whatever your situation is. But those are the four phases of our cycle, and then is what I call FLOWductivity, is really just finding flow in this productivity, and that's the feminine.
Yes.
Right, you have the structure of these four phases, but the feminine is that flow of it changes. You are not showing up and doing the same thing day in and day out.
Yes. And I really appreciate you breaking that down, introducing the four phases, and then also introducing what that could look like in terms of how you would be actionably, using your time and attention and energy during those times no matter what kind of work you're doing in the world. And I really appreciate the fact that you brought up that when we tune into our own natural rhythms and are able to reap the benefits of our increased energy and vitality, that then it also supports us with no longer feeling guilty about setting boundaries, because this I find is so huge with
Mm,
so many of the clients and community members that I work with. And really for women, I think particularly, but across all genders, that we have very much been socialized to not assert our boundaries and assert our needs. And it's something that feels confronting and challenging for us. And would love to be able to dive into this a little bit more and explore what you're currently learning about boundaries and
mm,
how having and developing healthier boundaries has supported you in your life and in your work.
It's so sweet when I hear you repeat that back to me. I got like full body chills of just like ease. Like, isn't that what we all want and really deserve?
Yes.
Really, it's like what I was saying with that culture of like it has to hurt to work,
Mm.
right? And um, time is money, and that brings me into where I'm at with boundaries, because our really where I'm at with that is doing less,
Mm.
and divorcing my self-worth from productivity,
Yes.
right? So, like in the beginning of COVID, it was like with the loss of structure of like going to studios and um, being in more physical spaces to do my work, I would make these to-do lists with like 25 things on them. And I'm laughing because I have one in front of me right now. And it's like I would get like two or three things done. And at the end of the day, I'd be like, girl, what's wrong with you?
Mm.
Like, you had so much more to do today. Why didn't you get more done? And then it spirals very quickly into a sense of worthlessness of
Mm.
just like, how many hours are in this day? And why didn't you get more done?
Mm.
And now, a year later, my to-do list has 3 or 4 things on
Love.
it. And so time is so much more than money.
Yeah.
And it's aligning really creating boundaries that allow me to align with quality over quantity.
Mm.
I am definitely a recovering people pleaser. So creating boundaries, yes, guilty. I think a lot of us could probably raise a hand here.
Right.
Um, and like no more saying yes or maybe when I really mean no with clarity. Um, creating space in my day to day to spend time to do the things that I love.
Beautiful.
Really having a boundary of the first 2 hours of my day,
Mm.
like my phone it stays on airplane mode. Um, besides letting my puppy out, I don't really do anything for any other beings
Mm.
those first 2 hours of my day. And there's days where I teach at 8 a.m. So that does mean waking up earlier and journaling and really fitting in my own personal practice, my pleasure practice, a dance, time to just be with me.
Right.
Um, that's a boundary that I really strongly protect.
Mm.
Not only time each day, but a day each week, you
Love.
know, staying off social media on Sundays.
Mm.
Like, I really would be okay, like, not connecting with any other humans on Sundays because
Mm.
that's my day.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's a matter of creating boundaries so that what actually matters to me makes it on my calendar.
Mm. Yeah.
And then allowing the rest of it to fill in, and I think that in previously, I could get an email right now that would ask me to cover a class in an hour, and I would say yes.
Mm,
Now, my boundary, if it's not on my schedule by Sunday, it is not happening until the following week,
huge.
because I am going to plug into my calendar what actually matters to me
Mhm.
so that it's quality. And if I can't do it this week, let's look into next week and see what might work for both of us.
Yes. I think that the way that you were able to, yeah, just so openly share about your own experience of boundaries can be really expansive and just be a beautiful example for others around what's possible. Because I just really appreciate the way that you said creating boundaries so that what actually matters to you is prioritized.
Mm-hmm.
That is what makes it on the calendar, and then anything else can fill in around that. Because there's, yeah, again, there's so much pressure, there's so much conditioning to make ourselves so available to others and prioritize the other items that others are placing on our plate before we even consider what we're desiring, what our priorities are, how we want to manage our own time. And so I think, expanding into having those boundaries really aligned with our own core needs, desires, and yeah, just priorities for how we want to spend our time is so essential to supporting that ease that we were describing.
Absolutely. And I think that this also kind of like infiltrates our like interpersonal relationships. Like when I think of my partner, like I don't want any, or my friends or anybody that I am in relationship with, I don't want any one person to be my everything. And I don't want to be anyone's person's everything.
Sure.
And if we say yes to everything,
Mm,
how much are we really showing up from this place of pleasure? From like, this feels so good, and I am so excited to do this. Of
right.
like, this is what matters to me,
Mm,
right? It's like it's like then you're just shackled by like shoulds. I should probably do this. I should probably say yes. I
mm,
should probably take this opportunity. Should
yes.
you?
But why?
But should you? But
Right.
why exactly? Like, where does that should sit in your body? And
Mm.
like, where did that belief come from?
Yes. And I hadn't heard that phrase before, shackled by shoulds, because it does feel heavy. It feels obligatory. It feels uncomfortable. And when we're receiving that messaging from our own body of it feeling so heavy and so constricting, that is a sign. That's a red flag that
Yep.
we probably shouldn't actually. It's not for our best or even
Like,
serving that other person.
mm-mm.
Yes. And so I really appreciate the fact that you connected this in with our interpersonal relationships and yeah, being able to really show up in a way that is more pleasurable, that is more inviting for us really being able to embody our own values when we are setting those boundaries and establishing them in a thoughtful way. And would love to be able to explore with you as well how this work around floductivity and tuning into your body has really supported your relationships, your interpersonal connections, and even more broadly, like with your clients and with your community.
Yeah. Um, I think that this work has kind of served as this like permission
Mm.
to like, I don't know why this is what's coming up of like letting your freak flag fly,
Yeah.
like you be you. And it is almost this like badass movement of just like, it don't feel good, don't do it. And it's like, it's amazing to me because, you know, I think when I first started this work 5, 6 years ago, people are like, oh my God, how'd you do this? Like, it was like almost still like whispered and like, oh my God, like, what? Like, you just told your class that you're menstruating, so you're not going to move today? Like, oh my God, she just talked about her period, and now it's like, um, you know, it's just an interest, like even in dating, like the other day, like this person that I'm kind of in a budding relationship with, like I mentioned my period just very like casually,
Right.
and it was in a text exchange.
Mm.
And so I was like, he didn't respond right away, and so I felt this like, should I soften that and like,
Mm.
should I like text him and like apologize if that felt uncomfortable? And it was just like, no, you are not, because he's got to learn to carry this, because
Yes.
we're basically, and this is what I really talk a lot and share this a lot with my clients, with my friends, with partners, is that we have upheld the system that was not designed for us because we continue working for it. And
Mm.
so it's this act of resistance, this self-love and like pleasure as our compass has become this active resistance that has allowed this really deep connection to happen with me, my clients, where like everybody feels like family. They feel like it's this like deep ingrained sisterhood that's like, I would imagine if I like did 23andMe and like, or like ancestry.com and found out I had like a long lost sister, like that's what I feel like is happening through this work. It's
Yes.
just like, oh my God, girl, like I feel you. I get you. I do that. Like I bleed like you. I, feel bloated like you sometimes. I feel antisocial sometimes. And like, we don't have to call it, like, it doesn't have to be derogatory. It doesn't have to be like, oh, PMS. Like,
Right.
I just feel like such a not nice person. It's just like, okay, it's a place of empowerment, because it's like, I understand exactly what's going on.
Right.
And it's become this like, it's a superpower that only like bleeding women have.
Yes.
Right. And so it's really not only allowed me to form these deep, deep, deep connections with other women who are experiencing the same things and haven't had the permission or the education
Right.
to empower this
Mm.
cyclical. It's like, when we've been told we're inconsistent, but like, we're not inconsistent, we're just cyclical, and it
Yes.
happens consistently every month. you know and it's also allowed me to break down barriers between myself
Mm.
and people that I relate with that are male bodied. So even my brother, or my male friends, or people that I'm dating, it's become like, let's normalize this, let's talk about this. Like, this isn't, it's only like disgusting or needing to be kind of shut off because we don't have an understanding of it.
Yes.
But once you understand your cyclical nature,
Mm.
whoever these males are, if it's your boss, if it's your boyfriend, if it's your brother, if it's your friend, whoever it is, you
Yeah.
can just explain it to them. That's all people want, is an
Sure.
understanding, because understanding is empowerment. And so if we could even say to our male partners, like,
Mm.
hey, this week I'm going to feel a little less social and I'm really not going to want to be touched. And like, what would feel really good is if you could just cook me a really great meal and like
Mm.
let me eat it on the couch.
Yes. And
Because that's all they want. They just want to know where to meet you and how to do that.
sure. Yes. And I love that that complete reframing, like flipping this whole relationship that we've had to our body and menstruation completely on its head, because there is still a lot of just discomfort and stigma and minimizing of this huge part of our life and our bodily functioning, and being able to see it as a source of empowerment, seeing it as a superpower. And yeah, just the beautiful, powerful way that you were describing, when we start to really guide our lives, when we have love and pleasure as our compass, that
Mm.
gets to be a source of resistance, a way of addressing or redirecting the ways that a lot of different systems and relationship dynamics have been operating for centuries in ways that do not support or recognize or honor
Mm-hmm.
the cyclical nature of women's lives. And so I just feel like this is such an exciting time to really, be having full force into this work in our individual relationships with ourselves, and also, as you were describing, in our relationships with others, across all genders, right? Not just sharing this with the women in our lives, but with everyone that we interact with, so that it can become so much more normalized and also just so much more welcomed and celebrated, as you said, like allowing ourselves to see this as a superpower. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would also love to be able to talk a bit with you about some of your own current growth edges in your own life and spiritual practice, and some of the things that you are just learning and exploring.
What a beautiful question. Um, I think that really what's coming up for me, now that I have found my own internal compass and like my own GPS system that is inside of me, um, you know, I've learned to work with that. I've learned to align with my ebbs and flows. I've learned what my cycle looks like and how to align my life with that internally. And I think that I'm experiencing this integration period that is requiring me to really trust that others are here to support this vision for myself as well. I think it's interesting because I think really who comes up first are like my parents, where they're just like, girl, you're so woo woo, but like, whatever, you do you. And it's like, no, but you do it too.
Yeah.
like it's not really woo woo. It's just that we are dismantling really kind of a system of oppression. Like we're dismantling this system that does not work.
Right.
And you can do it too, dad. And you can do it too, mom.
Right.
And so it's like, and then there's the comments of like, okay, but what are you gonna do to like make money? Right. And it's we're I mean, there's centuries and centuries of this type of belief,
Yeah.
that time is money. And so then I kind of run into this like people pleasing of like, but maybe I should say yes, should.
The shoulds.
And it's like, it's changing the language, and it's that integration of like, let me continue to consistently do what I said I was going to do and show up that way, and trust that with time, there'll be a shared understanding that will allow all people to want this, not only for me, but for themselves too.
Yes.
It is that point of resistance that I do meet with of like, okay, well, I got this when I'm on my own, but when I step outside my door, that's kind of a mean, ugly world out there sometimes, and it's consistently showing up and doing what I said I was going to do, and really, really believing in the work that I do,
Yeah.
and trusting that others do support that vision. It's just, again, back to that lack of understanding and lack of education, which is then herein lies the cycle. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to teach, I'm here to educate, and I'm here to share. And so if I can trust them, then I can continue to show up and teach, which allows them to trust me. And it's this really amazing feedback loop that starts to happen.
Yes. This really, really landed with me. I feel like I'm in a very similar space in my own journey where I like how you described it as that point of resistance where you can feel so connected with the work that you're doing and know that that is your purpose and why you're here, and you got it when you're in your own sphere or even within your own community with other people who share similar values and who get it. But that it can be particularly challenging and confronting when stepping out into the world and being met with, whether it's parents or peers or folks in other communities that aren't like-minded communities maybe, and that there are certain, just comments that will be made or experiences that we have where things that are connected to the body or spirituality or the divine, are cast off as being woo-woo or ungrounded or not scientifically backed, when all of these things are deeply also scientifically backed and
Yes.
connected to the ways in which the earth, our bodies, would actually be able to be healthier, more sustained, more vital, that a lot of the mainstream ways of functioning are actually what is backwards, at odds, not working, unsustainable. So I think that it's so beautiful the way that you've described changing the narrative, changing the language, finding the ways that we can, keep that consistency with what we're saying and what we're doing, so that we are able to meet those points of resistance or those moments of challenge with that trust and that grounding and that support. And I think, throughout this entire conversation, it's a thread that I've kind of been picking up from what you've been sharing is just the deep importance of having that internal GPS. And as you described, like having self-love and pleasure as your compass. And for me, this feels so deeply connected to the theme of soulful abundance and what this series is all about, and would love to also be able to explore with you how soulful abundance lands for you and what it means to you and how you might define it.
When I hear those words, soulful abundance, the first thing that comes to mind is like a full body yes. And so I break down like abundance, which I think having a lot of, being rich in. Sure. And soulful is filled with soul, right? That place inside of me, that what I would call my center. And so what makes my soul full, and what do I need a lot, or do I want a lot of? Time, joy, pleasure. So soulful abundance to me is really being rich in time, quality time, in joy, things that just make me happy, bring me joy, and pleasure, things that feel really good. And if I can impact others' lives along the way, all the more better for me, and everybody else, hopefully. Yeah. But that is really what soulful abundance is to me. And it's moving away from the construct of time is money and bringing it back to time is joy and is pleasure.
Yes. Oh, I love that. What a beautiful note to wrap on. Yes. Joy and pleasure. But allowing that to be the source of our abundance. And so I know that our audience is going to be so excited about finding ways that they can stay connected with you. And so if you could share that now, that would be amazing.
Yes, great. Thank you for that. So as you mentioned, I do teach classes weekly. I also offer monthly workshops as well as both group and one-on-one coaching. Best way to stay up to date with my offerings is I'm most active on Instagram. My handle is at Steph Lit Yoga. And also on my website, which is the same, stephlityoga.com. There is links on both the website and Instagram if you want to connect with me directly. Email me, slide into my DMs, whatever works for you. And then there's also kind of a deeper explanation of my offerings and how to work with me there.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again so much for being here, Steph. I feel like I was able to just gain so much wisdom from this conversation. And I know that our audience is going to feel the same. And for everyone who tuned in, thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to engaging with you throughout the rest of this summit. Be well, everyone.